Hello, I'm David Byes, your host of True Leadership, a show about impact-driven people and initiatives at Mississippi State University. Today I'm joined by Dr. Colleen Sinclair, a faculty member in the Social Science Research Center in the Department of Psychology, a social psychologist here to talk with us about misinformation and the connection of misinformation and this COVID pandemic that we've been living in. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I want to talk, as I just said, about misinformation, and you published a story recently in Psychology Today on why misinformation goes viral. So talk to us a little bit about the pandemic, and that sort of creates a perfect storm, was I think the phrase that you used for the spread of the misinformation. Tell us why that is.
Well, first off, whenever you have any sort of big event, you have what this big events require big explanations. So already people are looking for information. But whenever it's what we call a dread risk, which is anything that is highly negative, large scale, and presents a threat to our survival, then we're really primed for receiving any sort of information we can to help protect us from that threat.
All right, it's fascinating. So you cite as a contributor to the spread of misinformation on social media negativity bias. Mm-hmm. First, tell us what negativity bias is, and why is it that that impacts what we go looking for?
Okay, sure. So of course we all like to hear good information too, right? But our evolutionary background sort of primed us and helped us evolve a alert system in our brain, and the amygdala, which really makes us on guard for anything that might be a threat, right? Certainly, if you think about your ancient ancestors, they would be more likely to survive if they paid attention to the predators roaming around the encampment than the new birth in the encampment, right? Good news, but the bad news presents a more immediate threat. And so that's one of the things, that whenever there's negative information, it tends to get our attention. It activates that amygdala right away, and so we pay more attention.
Got it. So what other factors besides this contribute to the flood of, we've seen lots and lots of misinformation on this virus, so what's contributing to that?
Yeah, doctors are calling it an infodemic even. So they feel like they're fighting a pandemic on two fronts. So one is fighting the disease itself, and then the second is fighting all this misinformation that they're having come in where people don't understand what's going on. So one's not just it being a dread risk, so where people are looking for information, things to help them alleviate the fears that they have, protect friends and family. We also have that it's a novel dread risk, right? We've faced viruses before. I mean, you saw some of this with the Ebola outbreak, but it's not at the same global pandemic level. And so when it's novel, we don't have any information. We're looking for information. We're social beings, we're social learners, and so we get that information from other people. And so then you have added to that then where we're getting that information, particularly because we're quarantined, is on social media, right? And so it takes a fraction of a second to hit the share button on something that you saw that you think might be helping people, helping them get information that you think is helpful to yourself, but it could in fact be harming people. Right,
and I guess the social media, it's also, we're sort of this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts, where we're seeing more of what we want to see, and that our feeds are being fed with more misinformation. The more misinformation we share.
Exactly, the algorithms contribute.
Yeah.
And then further, the complicating factor with social media is that it's going by so quickly. And so you have that you've got this emotional, susceptibility to information. You're looking for anything, but then the speed at which things are going by also then inhibits your ability to engage in critical thinking, to process and really evaluate those messages that you're being exposed to.
So, and I think you sort of hit on this, but why are we so hungry for information during a major event that makes us tend to believe wrong information over the scientific facts?
Well, unfortunately, lies spread faster than truth in instances like this. So if you think about how long it takes you to compose a meme about how, I don't know, drinking high proof alcohol will help you fight the virus, which was one of the myths that went around. It takes you, 2 minutes? Maybe 3 minutes if you're really investing into that meme. Compare that to how long it takes science to put together a controlled, randomized experiment that they then have replicated by other people. So the pace at which the information is getting out is dramatically different. So by the time the science gets out, the lie's already been out there and shared 900,000 times. And it takes a long time for science science to catch up. You also have the issue that science is self-correcting. The meme will just repeat again and again and again and again, and doesn't ever self-correct, right? Doesn't have any interest in self-correcting, but science will be like, well, actually we found this before, but now after replication we find this may not be the case. We need to do something else instead. People get frustrated and they give up and say, science doesn't know anything, but my cousin down the road says, this will work.
So one last question before we wrap this segment up. And to end on a positive note, how can we be better information processors? What are some things we can do?
Well, one is to realize that there is a proliferation of misinformation, right? And to realize that it's out there, and to then go in skeptically with any information that you encounter, particularly if it's anything that's advancing some sort of COVID cure, right? Certainly if there had been such a thing, we probably would have heard about it on mainstream networks. You wouldn't have to rely on your social media news feed to get that information. I always just be skeptical of anything in meme form or on a YouTube channel. But yeah, and I can't encourage enough people to engage in fact checking of the information that they encounter before they hit share, because once you hit share, you can't really take it back. It's already done harm. And I know we wanted to end on a positive note, but there are new studies emerging showing that misinformation has actually cost people their lives in this pandemic. So you want to help? Stop sharing.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
And thank you for joining us today for this segment of this episode of True Leadership. We'll be back with you soon with our final segment of the day.
Meeting the challenges of a changing world. It's a responsibility we take seriously at Mississippi State University. Today, our outstanding faculty are on the job with a passion that places them among the best in the business. We're launching new classroom models, investing in world-changing research, and providing a college experience that's second to none. Though things may look different, our sights have never been higher.
Hello, I'm David Byes, back with you for the second segment of True Leadership, a story about impact-driven people and initiatives at Mississippi State University. For this segment, I'm joined by Dr. Angela Farmer, who is an assistant clinical professor of honors education in the Honors College here at the university. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote a great piece for The Conversation called How Have Required College Entrance Exams Helped or Hurt in the Past? And so a lot of relevance for COVID-19 as we've seen universities maybe dialing back on entrance exams and so on and so forth for applications. So tell us, give us the thumbnail sketch of your article and its relevance for us during this pandemic.
So I'll give full credit. It was a collaboration, and I worked with another professor who had done a lot of research looking at sort of the protocols and how do universities look at applicants, and what's the rubric used for. And we combined that with my experience as far as having been a school leader and when students matriculate from high school to college, what are the universities looking to find? And in this COVID experience, what we're finding is the students are facing a very different administration at the universities, and they are receiving very different students because they may not have had an opportunity to take the assessment, whether it's the ACT or the SAT, and or they may not have had the opportunity for the adequate preparation. So what we've witnessed is a much more holistic approach from most universities across the United States, meaning they may take the SAT and the ACT. However, they may also look a little more deeply into the applicant's full holistic composite. What have they done? Where have they been? What's the poverty ratio at that school? How have they performed against their peers in that demographic, rather than just an analytical, what's your GPA, what's your ACT? I think, it's a much more complex analysis today.
That's really amazing. I think that's encouraging, or it's encouraging to me at least. Tell us how standardized tests offer benefits to the college admissions process and then those disadvantages. And I think you kind of hit on that, but anything else you want to say about
absolutely. It's clean and it's easy.
Right.
But in life, few things are truly clean and easy when you come to dealing with humans and human nature. So while it's very easy and direct, I know back when I applied to universities, you could just, like a map, you could coordinate what was your ACT, what was your GPA, there's your scholarship. And while that still exists to some degree in many campuses, what we are also seeing is that does not represent the full student. And certainly at a time when we're trying to make sure that we not only accept a full, composite of students, but that we are missing perhaps rich data of students out there by not looking a little more deeply into what they have to offer. Also, when you look at what student composites are, if you're accepting, so there is no guarantee that a 36 ACT is going to turn out a strong student who has the work ethic, who has the intrinsic motivation to go forward. That's a much more complicated analysis that often requires an essay, a discussion. I know in the Honors College, we sit down and have conversations for students that are interested in presidential and provost scholarships, because we know that there's much more to those students, there's much more depth than you can get just on a piece of paper.
Right, that's music to my ears. I took the ACT 7 times, and
wow.
just to try to get a good enough score to get some scholarships. So I love hearing that administrators are finally coming around to looking at the.
I spoke to someone recently who had some experience at Harvard University, and the one thing that he shared was that the students that come from there primarily come from 7 to 10 schools. So their feeder schools are those that have prepared because they know what the university is expecting. So I think we're going to see universities being, much broader in what they're looking for, so that we're not just getting this staid composite coming through the door.
So shifting gears a little bit, you wrote another piece called Screen Savvy Strategies, and related here also because it's connected to trends in education. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are, how that you laid out this article.
My motivation for that piece was, first of all, we're dealing with students who we call digital natives because they were born playing with with the iPhones. They don't know an environment without it. And with parents, many of whom, some are digital natives, but many of whom are not. And so the response is put the phone away, put the tool away, go read a book. Because that's the composite we understand. Right. And the reality is you don't want them to capitalize on screen time exclusively, but there are some really good tools out there. Whether it's something like Virtual Nerd that can help them through physics and chemistry and mathematic problems, whether it's something like Khan Academy. You have to have internet access to be able to access those tools. And granted, I think the biggest thing that we see is the parents have to be involved. You can't just say exclusively, all internet access is bad or all of it's good, or just, there are good books and bad books. So it requires active engagements of the parents and the educators in order to maximize the students' learning in this new digital era.
Well, you said earlier on our previous topic that few things in life are clean, and I think electronics is another one of those areas where we can't do cut and dry. It's been great talking with you. I wish we had more time to unpack this, but I would encourage our listeners to go out and read your articles. We'll be sure those are posted when this segment is posted as well. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Farmer.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for joining us for this episode of True Leadership.